Mr. President, Ray McGovern is here to brief you.
More bad news. Hi, Ray.
Good morning, Mr. President. It's good to see you again. I want to talk a little bit about the reaction to the announcement said in your name that longer range missiles have been approved for use by the Ukrainians into Russia. You may recall that back on September 12th, you were actually considering that, allowing that. And that was the day that Putin warned, look, this would change the war. It would make the U.S. and NATO party to the war. And you told the visiting Prime Minister from England, Starmer, that you weren't going to do it. And that's the way it stayed for the last several weeks until just now. Now they say that you have authorized the use of these ATACMS and, by analogy, the French and the British long-range missiles or longer-range missiles. Now, Mr. President, I have to sort of emphasize here, the longer range ATACMS go only 190 miles. I don't know if the military has told you how many ATACMS there are, but we know that there are very few ATACMS other than the ones we believe we need to protect ourselves. The other thing is that the Russians have moved all their key facilities, 90% of their key facilities, out of range of the ATACMS. 190 miles is not much in Russia. Very easy for them to remove them from that distance. And then, of course, there were worries that Russia would respond as Putin hinted Russia would. What's changed? We don't really know, Mr. President, why you changed your mind, but the press is speculating that you wanted to make sure that you could say when you left office that you had given Zelensky everything possible that he asked for, and that, in effect, if Ukraine goes down, it will be on Trump's watch, and that these missiles will have, I will say again, will have no effect on the war. Even the New York Times, even the Washington Post, even the Wall Street Journal, always are careful to say, somewhere buried in the middle of these articles, all officials agree this will not change the trajectory of the war. And that trajectory, of course, is very much in favor. It's almost a complete given that Russia is just a month or so away from reaching the Dnieper River, and that will be the new situation created. You may be still around or maybe not, but the one thing I want to point out to you, Mr. President, and it's really important because it's denied by everyone, especially those nuclear power enthusiasts. Nuclear power stations are an object of war making now. They are very vulnerable. And the reason I mention this is that there are two power stations in Kursk, the city of Kursk, not the city, but outside the city, which are old vintage and very vulnerable. I asked some of our scientists to come up with a briefing paper because this is so important and so neglected. And this is, I'll just read a few sentences from this. The Russian Kursk nuclear power plant, located only 37 miles from the Ukrainian border, well within the range of all the various Western missile systems that have been sent to Ukraine. There are two reactors there. The older Chernobyl-type reactors lack the protective concrete and steel reactor containment vessel, which typically has steel-lined concrete walls that are 3 feet thick. They're found in more modern reactors. This makes them quite vulnerable. Each of the spent fuel pools, and this is equally important, Mr. President, each of the spent fuel pools located next to these reactors reportedly contains several hundred tons of spent fuel, which has 5 to 10 times more long-lived radiation than is held in other reactors of this kind. The destruction of these reactors and spent fuel pools would release 10 times more radiation than was released by the destruction of the Chernobyl reactor 10 times. Why do I make a point of this? Well, number one, nobody mentions it because there are a lot of nuclear power enthusiasts. They don't want to admit that this is really a vulnerability in war. Number two, they're now within range of all these systems. And were the Ukrainians to take some of these missiles, do kind of like a scattershot thing, send a whole bunch of them at the same time, it's quite likely that however impenetrable the Russian defenses of Kursk nuclear power stations is, they will not be completely impenetrable, and we'll have a nuclear accident or a nuclear event, as I say, 10 times more powerful, more toxic than what happened in Chernobyl so many years ago. So I wanted you to be aware of that, partly because it's questionable as to how much control the Ukrainians might have over some of these missiles. Some of them don't really require U.S. or NATO permission or guidance. And so I think that to the degree that you and your people can rein in Zelensky, who's riding very high now, and make sure he doesn't try this kind of attack, that would be all to the good, because that's all we need. I mean, that would destroy a large part of Russia and the rest of Europe. That's what nobody needs. But Zelensky is not very dependable in these circumstances. I would not depend on him to be more sensible when he's got a rope around his neck, and I think he probably feels that way now with Trump coming in.
Ray, we only got a few more weeks doing this stuff. Are you going to retire? I don't know. You're already retired, but you still come in and do these pro bono, I guess. Got a big pension. You've been there 27 years, right?
Yes.
Now, I've been briefed by you and all that. You will keep leaving out that the forces of reason and democracy, civil liberties, peace in the U.S. have been delivered a terrible blow by this Trump smashing victory. Let's cut to the chase. He cleaned our clock, and the last thing I want is, or that we need as Democrats, people who care about America. I'm not doing this for selfish reasons. I stepped down. I could have done better than Kamala. Everybody said, no, she's going to be a fresh face. I'm out of my mind. I'm senile. What the hell? I'm no more senile than you are, Ray. Goddamn age. But the fact of the matter is, this guy's going to come in and cut some deal with Putin that Zelensky will have to accept because they're not going anywhere. Anyway, Zelensky will have an excuse that he had to go along with it. But what the media calls my legacy is shot to shit. Okay, well, that's all right. But it means the legacy of a president who cared about the world, cared about our patriotic obligations, cared about democracy and freedom. And this guy comes in and he's already promised it, right? He's going to cut a deal, and the Ukrainians are going to give up some territory. Won't be the end of the world for them, but it looks like shit. And I don't know. What these weapons? I wasn't even there when they decided. They don't go that far, a couple hundred miles. Anyway, I can't tell Zelensky what to do. I can't tell Netanyahu what to do. Nobody listens to me anyway. They didn't listen even when I was not the lame duck. Now I got you can count the weeks that I got left. What, 7 weeks, 8 weeks? Damn thing. Nobody talks to me anymore. And they said this is not a big deal. Once again, you're saying it's a big deal, but there's nothing I can do.
Mr. President, it could be a big deal. Now, you have 2 months, and that's what I'm focused on, not what happens after the 2 months. And what I'm trying to say here is that the Russians laid down a marker back on the 12th of September. That was Putin in a kind of informal discussion in a driveway said, look, These missiles that the US and UK and France have, and Germany too, cannot be used without guidance and also technology supplied by the Americans. And so, were they to use these missiles, this would mean that the Americans and NATO are a co-belligerent with us. Okay, now that shocked everyone, and indeed, when you were told that, you may recall this, you decided to deny the British permission to use their Storm Shadow missiles. Uh, Keir Starmer was due in the White House the next day. That was Friday the 13th, by coincidence. He was told by you, no, we're not going to do that. Now, my colleagues at the CIA are wondering what changed your mind. And I mentioned the speculation in the press that you just wanted to make sure that it appeared in your legacy that you didn't shy away from giving Zelensky everything he requested. He has been requesting this repeatedly, almost daily for the last 4 weeks. Now he's really riding high, and he says he's going to use these things really quickly before this window shuts down. What does that mean? Well, what damage can they do? They can do a hell of a lot of damage to nuclear power stations, and that's what we're trying to remind you of, Mr. President. If your military is alert, and if they understand why you did this after their advice prevented you from doing this just 2 months ago, then they really need to make sure that the Ukrainians don't do anything like a false flag or even a true flag by sending swarms of missiles and drones that the Russians can't cope with and doing damage to one of these nuclear facilities. That's what we like to raise with you right now, because nobody likes to raise that, but it's true, and it's more likely now over the next 2 months than ever. And that would be part of your legacy as well. So what I'm suggesting is that there are ways to prevent the Ukrainians from doing this. You need to work. I would suggest you work with your military to make sure that they restrain the use of these things so that nuclear power stations and 10 times the fallout from 10 times more than Chernobyl, for God's sake, doesn't happen. That would be World War III. You have always said you wanted to avoid World War III. So that's the vulnerability that we see. We don't see much else vulnerable because the Russians have moved back many of their installations from the border with Ukraine, certainly back 190 miles. And besides that, you need to check on how many ATACMS missiles there are. Because last time, as I mentioned before, last time I checked, there weren't very many. And we don't know how many the Ukrainians have already used. And we don't want to give them any more from our stock. So your legacy is something important to you. It's important to the rest of us.
No, it's the legacy for democracy and for NATO and for our caring about what happens. And I can't, if Trump comes in there and he just negotiates some kind of deal and they give up those provinces there and all that, then all the money, all the people who died, everything was for naught. Because, we could have had that deal way back, a couple of years back, right? So
we did have that deal.
Yeah. So then that Newland woman there, she got me to mess that up. But that horse has left the barn there, Ray. We're going to do what we can now to put up so their bargaining position, if they have to negotiate, is as good as it could be. And I'm going to listen to the military guys and not the CIA. What do you guys lost your nerve for taking a battle to the enemy?
Mr. President, I would just remind you of how we've been telling you for over a year now that Putin has not lost. Rather, it's the opposite, that Putin was winning.
Yeah, I know. I hear that all the time. So what are we going to do? Let Trump, he comes in. I'm trying to, if it goes bad, why, and they start expanding it, then he can't pull out. I mean, he does some damage now to Putin, and to his people. And He's not going to negotiate, and so therefore Trump will be proved to be naive or a liar when he said he could settle this. We,
Mr.
we,
President,
we're creating a situation where he can't do that. And that's good because for the forces of peace in this world, you got to stand up to dictators and everything. And that's what we're doing. And I'm not pulling back here because I hope it creates a hell of a mess for Putin and that he overreacts. And then there's no way in hell Trump can come in, you know. Putin's done even more damage. And what, you're going to tell him to suck it up? So I think we're holding a winning card here.
well, Mr. President, the recent polls show that most Americans are firmly opposed to further aid to Ukraine and further involvement. And so there are a lot of people, and I'm not an expert on this, that suggest that by making himself the peace candidate of all things, Trump had a real resonance among many people. So when he comes in, Putin's terms are firm. They're very easily understood. Number one, the Ukrainians, according to Putin, need to leave, draw their forces out of those four territories, those four oblasts that Russia has now incorporated. They need to abjure any hope to join NATO, and they need to. The Russians require a relaxation of the sanctions. So those are what are going to be negotiated. Now, I can see Trump coming in and say, well, all right, no, we're going to keep the sanctions in, but the rest of it, well, we can deal on that. And the thing can be resolved once Ukrainian forces pull out of these four oblasts and once there's a ceasefire and once, most important, Mr. President, once the Ukrainians say, okay, all right, we don't need to be a member of NATO. That's the key.
Well, I don't know. I can't, I'm not even in the country now. I don't even know what's going. Look, what's happening with Trump? I mean, he's brought in a lot of these hawks. I thought they all signed up with Kamala, but now he's got a whole another crowd, and he's got a field day in Israel. The worse that is, the happier he is. He makes a deal with Netanyahu to get rid of all the Palestinians or something. He's gonna win on that one. And Netanyahu put me in a hard place. And then you got I don't know, the Ukraine. Uh, at least I want to be able to say, we gave them everything they needed, and and then Trump came and screwed it up. I'm going to stick to the idea that we're on the verge of winning. We're
Yeah, Mr.
winning.
President.
Yeah, I don't care. Right? It's enough. What about who are these people he's appointing? What's this whole thing? This Tulsi Gabbard, all these people. Some kind of commie or what? She's peacenik. What does
Now,
she know about the intelligence?
let me just say another word about Ukraine.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a difference between Ukraine and support for Israel. Every one of those appointees are joined at the hip with Israel. I was asked just yesterday on a program, is it because they are really supportive of Israel, or is it because they're so loyal to Trump that these appointees were made? And I said, that's a distinction without a difference. The president is full scale in support of Netanyahu. That's dangerous. That's genocide still. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, someone said, oh, well, she's the exception. Well, Tulsi Gabbard is the least worst of all these appointees, in my view. That's sort of damning with faint praise, okay? But she, too, is one of these Zionists, and she has been for years, which I didn't really know until I looked into it. On Ukraine, it's different, Mr. President. On Ukraine, you could have people dealing, while you are still in office, dealing with Putin to get a better deal for Ukraine than Trump is likely to get. And that's something you should probe because Putin keeps saying, look, we want to talk. We're available to talk. These are our terms. They're negotiating terms. You know what negotiations are. You go and you talk about these terms and see if you can get some flexibility in what the Russians are doing and what they're saying. I don't think, well, they don't want to take over Ukraine, the Russians. They don't want to take over Poland and the Baltic states. That is all a fiction that you were sold, Mr. President. There's no expectation or no evidence of that. They want to secure Ukraine, which they can not expect to be attacked from. That's all you need to do. If you want to do that, you have 2 months to do that. It's not a lost cause. Rein in your people that want to attack Ukraine with missiles, including perhaps the Kursk nuclear power station. But then, show some flexibility. What's to lose? You go to negotiations and you appear, at least you appear, that you're willing to do two things: to be tough and to negotiate.
Ray, I'm not blaming you. You weren't big for pushing going in there, but I can't believe how we put all that money in there, and then Zelensky's probably going to line up with Trump, make him look good, call whatever he comes up with a victory, and I don't know. We always get taken, Democrats. We back every war, and we don't get credit for it.
Mr. President, there are $9 billion left that Blinken and Sullivan are trying to spend real quickly before January 20th. When you look at that money, somebody asked me, where's that going? Well, 1 million to Zelensky, 1 million to Zelensky, 1 minute to 1 million, 1 billion. These people are as corrupt as they come, and people recognize at the end. So to the degree you still have leverage, you can leverage that 9 million or 7 million or whatever it is that's left to say, look, we want to do a decent kind of deal. And you can.
Well, you got to get your millions and billions straightened out here, Ray. Nobody worries about 7 million.
Yeah, it's billion. I'm sorry, I don't talk in billions.
What are we talking about? Maybe you're losing it, Ray. You're getting a little older, They wouldn't. They don't stoop to worry about millions.
That's true. Yeah, you're quite right. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, this is all going to go into corruption, and in the final analysis, I don't believe Zelensky's going to be hanging around. He's going to get on a plane just like that Afghan president, full of cash, right, and go to some nice place in the Riviera where he can live the rest of his life with his pretty wife and delight in the benefits of retirement, so to speak, courtesy of the U.S. government.
Well, all right. And it looks like nobody's going to give a damn, right? He'll just give Netanyahu everything he wants, and he'll work some kind of deal out, and he'll look good. I don't know.
Mr. President,
I read an article this morning. I don't know where the hell I read it, but are we neoliberals now? I mean, I didn't even know I was a neoliberal, but they said we lost our wind. We got no wind in the sails. There's nothing we can do. Is that true?
Well, Mr. President,
am I a neoliberal? What does it mean anyway?
Well, I think I know what the definition is, but it's irrelevant, Mr. President. The question is whether you're a genocider.
Not allowed to say genocide.
Well, this is
America doesn't do torture. America doesn't do genocide.
Well,
it's got to have another name, something else. Enhanced interrogation. That worked for the torture thing, and then genocide. No, as unintended consequence of using weapons.
Mr. President,
innocent people get killed. They get killed all the time. People get killed in traffic accidents.
Yeah, in practical terms,
highways.
Mr. President, genocide can go on just so long.
Ray, I don't need to do this anymore because, I'm going to be damned if I do and damned if I don't. Now, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't have said go ahead with the missile, but I thought, let's do the Big Bang, here. And I don't mean the Big Bang, but let's do a Big Bang, and show we got some muscle and some resolve. And you're not going to talk me out of that because now that makes me feel better about my legacy, about what I've been all about. No, don't give an inch. Don't give an inch.
Mr. President, on Netanyahu, it's important for you to realize, if you've not been told by others, he is losing. He is losing big time, not only in Gaza, but in southern Lebanon, and he's losing in the contest with Iran. Now,
You hate this country. Why you keep telling us our
what
guys that we're backing are always losing? You know,
Netanyahu, he's not
yeah.
he's not my guy, Mr. President.
And you would have said
Netanyahu
that
is not
about
my guy.
Vietnam. We ended up winning, didn't
Yeah,
we? I don't know. I'm forgetting all these things here.
with
Right?
all
I
due,
mean, yeah, because but right, we I don't know,
with
remember.
all due respect,
You
Mr.
know,
President,
yeah,
Netanyahu is not my guy. Most people think he's your guy, and my point is
yeah.
he's losing. Okay, and what's he going to do? He's in
How could he
extreme.
be losing? We gave him everything. He's got the
Yeah,
biggest army there in the whole damn
yeah,
area, and how could he possibly lose?
because
He's
Iran can.
only losing because people keep talking about these children being killed, babies being killed,
Well, you
civilians
care
being
about
killed.
that.
Well,
You
who
care
told
about
them to
that.
go live there?
Yeah.
Who told them to go
Well,
live?
well, Mr.
How could they
President,
live in a Gaza
the
in the desert? And who told them to? I can't deal with that now. I'm out of this place. What, 8 weeks, something like that? What am I going to do? It's
two
just so.
months is a long time, Mr. President. By
Uh,
our calculations, about 20,000 more Palestinians will be dead in 2 months. So, to the degree that pricks your conscience, you should also know that Iran, for the first time in history, can destroy Israel. I say that again. Iran can destroy Israel. So,
well,
Netanyahu,
how can you say that? Nobody around here says that.
well, we say that because Iran, in part, has hypersonic missiles that Israel doesn't have because we don't have them. I don't know. This is an anomaly. We haven't been able to develop them. They go at 10 times the speed of sound, and they have already shown they get
But
through.
then we knock them all down in the Ukraine. We knocked a
No,
lot.
no, we didn't. It's just the opposite. Even Biden admitted 2 years ago that there's no defense
That's
against
me. You're
hypersonic
losing
missiles.
it
Yeah, you did.
again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
keep referring to the president when I'm talking to my colleagues.
yeah.
So, so what I'm saying here is the strategic equation has changed, and not only that, but
How many did they fire in Ukraine? They put one near Poland, right? They shot out.
uh,
Like,
well, yeah, there are a bunch of missiles that the Ukrainians have uh, shot into Russia, and
no, but these hypersonic things the Russians supposed to
oh
have. I
no,
thought
well,
I
no,
thought
those
they
weren't.
don't work,
Yeah,
or that we shoot them down, or
no, there was no shoot down. There was one errant missile. I forget what kind it was. It ended up some fragments in Poland. That was about a year ago. But the point here is that Netanyahu will find himself in extremis. Uh, if you're a friend of Israel and a friend of Netanyahu, you will prevent him from doing something like this. And just trying to hear me out. I predict that Netanyahu is going to say Iran is now working on a nuclear weapon. Contrary to what all those American intelligence people have said, now they're working on a nuclear weapon and we have to zap them before they get one. And he goes ahead and he tries to zap the nuclear facilities of Iran. And guess what happens? He's rebuffed and he calls on you, Mr. President, these last 2 months just to come to his help and say, this is really, I have to have help from you. That's the that's the cudgel that he has against you, and he's going to use it because he is an extremist. He's not going to use the Samson option. Pull down, use his nukes because you can't really use nukes in that small area. But he's going to try to incite Iran in such a way that you will have to come in, and you and the United States of America and its armed forces are the only entity that can obliterate Iran. And you don't want to be John McCain, bomb, 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 bomb Iran, do you? Well, that's what's in store for these next 2 months. If you say into that and tell your people, look, Tell Netanyahu, rein it in. We're not going to support you if you get
Anyway, we
involved.
gave them a 30-day deadline and getting some damn food in there, and we said we were going to act, and they didn't. They didn't let that food in there, and we didn't act. Now,
Right, Mr. President.
you
That's
think I'm going to go and tell them they can't do this or can't do that?
what have you got?
And then they know. Israelis know they got Trump in their pocket, and he wants to give them hotels there. Or, right? What does his son-in-law say? They want to make a tourist thing there in Gaza.
Yeah,
They'll
that's
probably pull it off, But
beachfront
anyway, it won't be on my watch. And
beachfront property.
I'm not going to do anything for the Arabs. They didn't vote for me or for Kamala.
Hmm.
You know.
Well,
Well,
I think that's the real powder keg there. It's gonna it's gonna boil over, so to speak, to mix metaphors, before 2 months are out. And I would simply suggest that all those folks that you have representing you, like Amos Hochstein, who fought in the Israeli army, not the American army, who is our emissary to Lebanon and to the hostage program, that you tell those people, look, I have 2 months. I want to do the right thing. I don't want to get involved in a bigger war defending Israel if it takes off after Iran. That would be a message that they would, well, that presumably they would heed and not go off half cocked and cause that kind of
yeah,
war.
yeah. Sounds good, Ray. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. It's over here. It's over. And at least they can't say I didn't give Zelensky what he wanted. I gave it to him. And I tell you, Ray, the big takeaway from this, these people don't listen to us. Nobody listens to us. They don't, I don't know. It's not like the old days. It's
It's true,
time
Mr.
maybe you should join me in retiring. You know.
Well,
And,
it's not like the old days, Mr. President. You got that
yeah,
exactly right. What we say,
yeah, and how the hell I let them talk me into stepping down or not running again. I could have done better, couldn't I, Ray? I could have done better. Kamala, what the hell is she talking about? Joy and new start and all that crap.
well,
She
she's
didn't
just,
have the guts. I see it. She could have put some distance with me. She didn't do that. She's not very secure.
well, Kamala is
She's,
history.
yeah,
She's
you're right.
history now. You're still well, she's still vice president, of course. I just ask you to reflect on what you could do in the next 2 months. It's not a lost cause. You could make sensible overtures in both areas, in West Asia and in Ukraine. And the alternative is very bleak
Hey,
and
Ray,
very
Ray,
dark.
Ray, Ray, I'm going to tell you something now, and then we're going to stop this because I am getting tired. And now I don't even have to pretend I can go all day long. I can't go. I'm going to take a nap. But Ray, have you looked at what we've been doing since World War II? Where the hell you've been at the CIA for 27 years? What have they gotten right? What have they gotten right? We didn't know diddly. I don't know, is that a phrase in your language there? We didn't know shit. My whole life I've been listening, advising everybody, telling me, and we didn't predict anything. We didn't know that China and Russia would end up being opposed to each other when they were communists, couldn't get along, couldn't do anything. And now we thought there's going to be freedom in Russia. We backed that Yeltsin. He picks this Putin. The next thing you know, China and Russia's like joined at the hip. Joined at the hip. And the Chinese get everything they wanted without firing a shot. The Russians have no people. They got big land. They got small population. Got all these resources. And what China needs all that overpopulation. Although now everybody says they need more people, I don't get that at all. But all my life I've been getting this advice. I can't think of one thing that you guys at the CIA got right. Now I know you're on the analytical side. You're not on the shoot them up, blow them up side. But you're around those people. You drink at the same water fountains. I know you got a turnstile, can't go past the turnstile, but you know, you could talk to each other. Your boss is in charge of both, and you tell me one damn thing the CIA got right. One.
Okay, Mr. President, thanks for asking. I would refer you to 2021, in the first year of your administration, when you asked Putin for a summit meeting in Geneva. That was in June 12th, I believe, 2021. We told you that the overarching atmosphere here was that Russia and China were joined at the hip, that the trilateral relationship had congealed where it was two against one. And what your advisors told you, that is Blinken and Sullivan, was that no, Russia has this real problem with China. And so you, after the summit, you said, you remember this, Mr. President. You said, I'm not going to talk exactly what I said to Putin, but he's got a real problem with China. Long, thousands of miles of border. Chinese are aspiring to be the most powerful military as well as economic country in the world. He's got the Chinese are squeezing Putin. Nothing could have been farther from the truth, Mr. President. That was a miscalculation of gigantic proportions because that's the tectonic shift in international relations that happened mostly on your watch now, partly
Yeah.
because of your attitude toward both of those superpowers. So, in defense of what we've been telling you, we warned you beforehand that this would happen. And after, we said, now, please have these fellows tell you the real story. Unfortunately, they were coming from textbooks they read at Harvard and Yale from 3 decades before, part of which I wrote when the Russians and the Chinese were at loggerheads. That changed. That changed many decades ago. We saw it, but your advisors didn't. And when Putin left that summit, I'm sure that he said to his advisors, "What the hell's going on here?" They think that they can exploit China against us and vice versa? Don't they know the times have changed? That was the biggie, Mr. President. We were right. Sullivan, Blinken, the rest of your advisors were dead wrong.
Yeah. A lot of good it does me to know that now. But all right, let's wrap it up there. I think it's Trump. You know, how can he gets this RFK in there? He gets this Tulsi. This guy, he doesn't read the labels. He just puts them in there. Now maybe he'll fire him 3 weeks again. But if I had hired Tulsi Gabbard, they'd tell me I'm a communist or something. Right? She was right against these wars and everything.
I have briefed Tulsi Gabbard. She's very bright. And on Ukraine, you can expect that she'll give Trump some solid advice. On West Asia, Israel, not so much. So, to the degree there's some hope, if she gets confirmed, and of course that is a major issue, let me just tell you, Mr. President, that she's not a Russian spy, as Hillary Clinton or what's her name, that
Elizabeth Warren, these people. I don't get it, because we're supposed to always be talking about McCarthyism and fascism and everything. Elizabeth Warren is now saying that isn't she a lieutenant colonel?
well,
She's
take
is she still in the reserves or something?
take Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who headed up the DNC when they slanted the primaries against Bernie Sanders, for God's sake. And then they claimed that the Russians hacked the DNC emails. No, they didn't. So she had to quit the DNC as soon as that was announced. Now she's saying that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian spy. Give me a break. There are people that are so democratic. Elizabeth Warren is one now that I have to regretfully say that will just repeat the party line, literally the party line, even when it's patently untrue. Here's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve who served honorably, who knows what the score is. And I hope she makes it by the Senate because I think she is a sane voice on everything except Israel.
All right, Ray. I can't stay awake anymore. Take
Thank
it
you.
easy. Maybe you should take an afternoon nap. Imagine I got run out of office because I maybe should have taken a nap. What the hell? I thought you just show up there at these ceremonies. That's mostly what a president does. You know.
Well, thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah. Where's that intern kid? Pull the plug here.